Good evening again. We want to welcome you to another edition of My Lutheran Connections. This is where we discuss all things Lutheran and we secure the facts beyond emotion. Today is another beautiful Sunday. We have with us in studio our brother Batam Abel Luboli. He's here with us, our lone sister, couple Saleh. She's there in our studios in Monrovia. Our dear brother Josiah Jokai, thank God that he's back again with us. He's there in our studios in Dansbury, Connecticut. Our lone Reverend is in Ohio. He will be joining us very shortly. And our brother there in Freetown, Sierra Leone, the ambassador, Jerry Tablo. And not to waste much time, we will be going up to Connecticut for the start of our program today.
Hey, everybody. You're most welcome to your favorite show, My Lutheran Connections Online TV. Some of you for short, just call it MLC Talk. Yeah, MLC Talk is My Lutheran Connections Online TV. And you know, Willie, Abel, and Kopo, interestingly, I was in conversation with one of our brethren. And he suggested that we name our show MLC Talk, and I just been it's just something that been lingering, across since days. Say MLC Talk, it sounds so. And I said to him, I say, hey, I'm going to talk about it a little bit. I'm loving it too. But this is My Lutheran Connections Online TV. We are your favorite platform. We come to you every Sunday at this hour. Here is now 4 p.m. Eastern in the U.S. and it's 8 p.m. in Liberia. We have the 1 hour gap. So we're going back to our original time frame. It used to be 3 p.m. and 8 p.m. respectively, 8 p.m. GMT, otherwise Liberian time. But now it's 4 p.m. Eastern and then 8 p.m. GMT Liberian time. You are welcome. Today promises to be great, looking at reconciliation. We've had some discussions for the last 2 Sundays, very intense, very interesting, about developments within the Women's Fellowship in the Lutheran Church in Liberia. We are taking it further to another level. We want to look at this holistically in the context of our church, the LCL. What are the divisive issues we're having in the church? How are they affecting us, our different fellowships, affecting the overall LCL? Is the leadership in any way concerned or affected by this reported widespread discussion about divisions within the LCL? How can we tackle such divisions in the LCL? What are the trauma implications? What are the psychological injury that is causing the individual members of the LCL, say us, all of us on this platform, those of you following, the leadership, Liberians, Lutherans back home in the diaspora? How is this affecting us as a body? We cannot provide any answers because we are not the experts. Neither I am, nor Willie, Sis Kopo, Abel, Brother Abel, Reving will want to, claim that they are express. We are not. So today we have a very, very good news for you. We have one of our brothers. In fact, he was being referred to as Healer One, Brother Sunday George. Yeah, when you are here of the Trauma Healing and Reconciliation Program of the Lutheran Church in Liberia, you are called Healer One. So I'm sure you are excited to be in the company of Healer One today. Brother Josh is going to be talking trauma healing and reconciliation today. He's going to be talking about what he's going to be talking about it. I don't know. It's going to unfold right here. So we want you to stick and stay with us throughout the conversation. So, vertical reconciliation, horizontal reconciliation. I heard this from Hila in our pre-conversation. So vertical, probably he's talking about reconciliation from God to man. Oh, in fact, that reminds me, you want me to go back to one of my poems, talk about Piassava wine, the importance of Piassava wine from God to man. That's not what I'm talking about here. So I hope, because I don't have anything to quench your thirst if you want Piassava wine right now. That's just a joke. Brother George is talking about reconciliation. spiritually, talking about the role God plays in our lives, how He directs us to reconcile with our brothers and our sisters. So that aspect of reconciliation, probably He may want to go there a little bit. I don't know, but horizontal reconciliation, according to Him, is going to be His focus. Reconciliation between man and man, and when we say man from the Christian background or Christianity background, we're talking about man and woman. So reconciliation between man and man in that respect. I don't want to be charged by cis couple. Say man, you're not talking about
Gender
male.
ethics.
Male. Yeah. So cis couple, I made myself clear, right? When we say man, we're talking about man biblically. The biblical scholars will defend me. So, Brother Josh, I mean, you can see how excited we are today to have you in our company. We're going to be talking reconciliation. But first, we will start with those things that are affecting us in the church, and I'm sure it's happening for a very long time. How can we deal with some of those issues? What in fact some of those issues are, and then how we arrive at this point to be talking reconciliation at this time. So it's over to you, Brother George. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here. I just hope that I won't disappoint you people. I will try my best because I know the enthusiasm and the way you've made the announcement. Everybody is like, I had some calls coming in saying, "My man, they put you on a hell of a stage with a hot seat." So, so I was saying, well, I'm grateful to the church, right? Because the church has trained me from the beginning when I entered the Trauma Healing Reconciliation Program. My first boss was B.B. Colley, Reverend Colley. He made me to travel extensively to learn reconciliation from different cultures and different perspectives. Then I joined the Truth and Reconciliation, where I was doing much more man-to-man reconciliation and those kinds of things. And they also sent me abroad to learn enough. And then I went to UNDP, where I was working as the manager for the Palava Hut in Liberia. So I got pretty much good ideas when it comes to reconciliation, especially in context. So thank you very, very much. And I'm not alone on this stage. Josiah myself did master program together, so I he got some background, and I worked with Abel before in the THRP. So these are people that we can rely on to make some contribution also. Willie, yeah, I know that Willie.
Impressive resume, and I'm not surprised. I know that I'm not surprised. I'm very proud to have somebody like you as a Lutheran with such resume, and that's why you are with us here today. Yeah, proud to have you.
Okay, so we try to put the show or the discussion today in perspective, contextualize it in a way that we become focused and see what actually we want to gain from the discussions today. And I want to give you a caveat. What we are about to discuss is not something that we've done research about, but these are things that we've been involved with because we've been Lutheran from our youth all the way up to the time we are old now. Mm-hmm. So we got some stories, and we've been making some on-the-spot analysis. When I was in the THRP, I remember I worked with the pastors' wives, and they have so many conflicts there. And I work also with the pastors. So I work with the young people too, the youth department. So pretty much I understand the Lutheran context. So just to put some sense into the discussion, I want to do something like an outline that will guide us so that we keep in line like that. So we want to look at the holistic reconciliation, and then we will look at the holistic reconciliation, and we will point out God's intervention as he gave the Christian the ministry of reconciliation. What did it really mean? And then we will look at man-to-man reconciliation. And it is from the man-to-man reconciliation that we'll be delving much more into analysis. So we might not talk much more about reconciliation, because before reconciliation comes to being, there must have been something that has gone wrong. Until you talk about those things that have gone wrong, there's no way you can talk about reconciliation. So we will talk about reconciliation in a holistic way, then we'll continue to narrow down, and then we'll look at our systems, how our systems are being operative in Liberia or in the Lutheran Church in Liberia. And then we will look at the various roles the subsystems have been playing and how it has affected our relationship man to man. And then we will try to find the missing gaps. We will also try to find the opportunities we have, and then we'll look at the way forward. So we might discuss, talk about the women issue a little bit within the system, because when the system crumbles, it has no control over the subsystem that is supposed to guide and lead and protect. So once there's a failed system, so many things happened. So we want to be looking at the system much more, where we'll be looking at the women organization, as a case study. We might not delve into it, like I said, because we need to really understand what really it is. What is the issue? Who are involved with those issues? Who are the major players? Where do they get their strength from when Sis Yamamboa is very strong to say that she can stay aside? What does she depend on? What power does she have? What's about Sis Annie? What power does she have? Who she depends on? So we'll be looking at all those things, and then we'll conclude by maybe giving ways forward, and then maybe taking questions from those around.
Yeah.
If it makes you people, then that's it. That's how I want to outline it. But you can make input though.
Oh, absolutely. That sounds fantastic. What a context. I think you just giving a very good context to guide our conversation. First, look at the holistic approach from a holistic perspective, reconciliation and I mean, trauma healing and reconciliation, because like you said, there has to be a reason for reconciliation. Exactly. Exists in vacuum. Something has to happen. Someone has to be reconciled with another person. In fact, when you look at healing is all about restoration, safety, and security. So if that is going to happen, then it means that something wrong has occurred. Then somebody's well-being, is at risk. So basically, I think is understandable. So the man-to-man is the aspect that I think a lot of people will be interested in. What's been going wrong in our church? What are those issues that have been causing people to be hurt? To stay away from the activities of the church. And to be lonely. It's a dangerous thing for people to be lonely. From a psychological standpoint, when they are injured morally, when their well-being is tampered with, definitely you don't expect them to be their normal selves. So yeah, that's what we have here today. So let's go from the holistic perspective, Brother George. Let's talk about trauma, and then let's talk about reconciliation.
Okay, so maybe before we reach there, let me just talk about a little bit about the whole issue about the ministry of reconciliation. And I'm not going to pretend that like I'm a pastor. I'm not a pastor. I'm just drawing a key note so that people understand where we go from here. So the issue about reconciliation is something that is very much biblical. Well, God created man, put man in the garden, and man sinned. And then God drove man and then cursed man. And then he reconciled us to himself by sending his son Jesus Christ to die for us. So that is the biblical concept of a reconciliation. So the death of Jesus Christ reconciled us with God. Our relationship with God was restored because Christ died for us. So we have confidence that we are children of God because we believe in the resurrection of Jesus Christ. So in much more practical sense, the activities of the reconciliation in the church, we have to do a baptism and confirmation, taking communion, doing evangelism, and those kinds of things. Much more when you are reconciled, you become healed, you become hopeful, and then you engage yourself into activities to keep you from sinning, to keep you from repeating the mistakes that you've repeated before. So I'm saying this because I don't want people to make the reconciliation to be just like God is there, God is there. I understand God is there, but there are some practical issues that we need to take as human beings to so that we help to build our relationship among each other. So mainly we will focus on the horizontal reconciliation. So God made man and breathed in his nostril, and then the breath of life, and then man became a living soul. So there was not association with too much with man and God, right? Then Eve came, and there where the whole issue started from. And then everything went where people, they developed into families, and people started associating. And then the whole issue about being your brother's keeper came into being. The Bible says, if you love God, you must also love your friend that you see, because God, you can see him. So there is no way you can love God and then don't see your friend and don't care for him. So that is the reconciliation that we'll be looking at. So if you look at the cross, it's like that. And then the vertical one is between God and ourselves. And then the horizontal one is between God and us. So that is the horizontal one we will be talking about today. So if you see the Lutheran Church is a system and organization.
Before you go to man to man reconciliation, the horizontal reconciliation, I just wanted to further, add to the biblical reference perspective that you provided, that the New Testament scripture that declares the most about reconciliation is 2 Corinthians 5:17 to 21. 2 Corinthians 5:17 to 21. And just for the sake of our audience, I just wanted to support what Brother Josh was talking about with this scripture reference, to say that the Apostle Paul clearly teaches that a believer can be a new creation, in quote unquote, can be a new creation in Christ through reconciliation. Okay, a new creation in Christ through reconciliation. And it further says that God sent Christ into the world to provide reconciliation through his death. Through his death. So God really reconciled us through his son Jesus Christ's death. So I just wanted to provide a biblical reference to support what you were talking about the meaning of God's, reconciling us from a biblical standpoint. Yeah. So you can go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Josiah. So you see, I told you we had enough fulcrum here that we can rely on. So the horizontal reconciliation, actually, we want to look at it between man and man. And when we were born, we grew up as individuals. And then we grew up having our own goals and objectives. So our goals and objectives could not just make us to survive alone, right? So we have to be in association with people. That's the time we make relationship, we develop relationship with people. And that relationship does not stop there. We also identify a system by which we can be a part, so that system becomes powerful because of the power of our relationship. And then we jump into those systems that share values, our goals and objectives in a way that we become powerful, strengthening, and it helps us to also meet our individual's goal and then collectively as a group. But what happens that if that particular system is not organized in a way that is supposed to be, like for example, a group must have terms of reference, it must have a constitution, it must be clear on the operations of how it's supposed to be run, who is supposed to be run by, how far does it go. Those things must be spelled up as a way of guiding people so that they don't triumph over each other. The whole issue about rights of existence. So because when we mingle with people, we share our values with them in the same way we share our differences with them. But most of the time, interestingly, what divides us as human beings are those same interests and goals that keeps us to that keep us together. So in conflict time, those goals and objectives are used against us. So, for example, if you see that the women were really talking to each other, they were united on one platform. But when that platform could not hold them together, that platform became a source of conflict among them. So we need to find out what really is the issue within that platform that is causing the conflict between them. But I'm not going to delve on that yet. So let's look at the Lutheran Church. The first bishop of the Lutheran Church was Bishop Payne. But before Bishop Payne, there were missionaries that came. The missionaries came, they were asking us to go to church. If you read the Lutheran Church or history, you will notice that the the Lutheran missionaries were giving us offering, giving us lantern and kerosene. When we were sick, we went to them and they treated us free. Then the first national bishop, Bishop Payne, those privileges were not given. So we were used to handle from the beginning. When the white people left, those that were on the ground, they said, but wait now, this guy in our everyday Liberian English, right? He does not give us the thing that people used to be giving us. So the evangelists, they were not taking church business serious now. They started going on their farms. And they were when you're sick, you need to pay for your treatment and those kinds of things. Those were historical problems that entered the church. And in most instances, people don't even take them into consideration. But those that were there at that time, they were traumatized because they could not get their ration. They could not get a kerosene. They could not get anything. So you can rest assured how that particular national leadership was like. People were not giving offerings. People were not giving tithe because they were not trained up to it. And then it dragged us to Bishop Dick's era. I'm just making it so that rapid so that we have much more time to talk about the meat. Then Bishop Dick came. Bishop Dick, unfortunately, the war came. So he led the church almost as an individual. And, everybody scattered. He was brave. He had protection from government because he took part in politics, right? So that stigma was also on the Lutherans globally just because of one person. That was another set of trauma that we went through. Bishop becoming a vice for the interim body, threatening Lutherans' lives. So those that were not connected to him directly suffer. So that was something that was hurting people that were not really close to Bishop. So it was a whole issue about one person or everybody suffering from one person. That's why I told people the last time. There are always the innocent sufferers. They will always suffer because one person idea. So then Bishop Harris time came. And then the church got together. When I mean the church, it's the pastor. They got together in our context. I want you to understand it from that way. They got together. They said, look, you know what? We don't want to have elections. So we will pray and then the Holy Spirit will descend on us. And then we will choose one person. Why? Because they were tired with Bishop Dix. There was no election. And Bishop Harris was taken as a new bishop. He has aspiration. He has hope. He was going to build the church, the whole issue about the Lutheran University. And then times went on. It was still the wartime, right? He tried his best. He got some gains, but then he had some failures also. The second term came. He went through successfully. The third term, the same pastors came. They say, you know what? There is no constitutional provision that says that a bishop should not serve for more than 2 terms. We will make the law. I am just telling you how the system sometimes sanction things that are not in a way that's supposed to promote peace and reconciliation. So then Bishop Harris went a third term. Blessed be to his ashes. He went a third term. Then comes Bishop Jensen. The myth was that, I'm saying it practically as we heard. Oh man, ELCA elects this man, they want him to be the bishop. And then it was like almost, I don't know, the national pastors that were there, They left their own national pastors, and then everybody converged behind Bishop Jensen Sayankolo, and then he won. So you see the amount of grievances we left behind. The way the politics is played in the church during elections, that is one huge thing. The pastors take full control. They run the day-to-day affairs of the electioneering process in the church. They tell the congregation who to vote for. And I will tell you a practical reality. I took part in Bishop Harris's second term, right? And I'm saying this, I'm sorry that it happened. And that what took me from the Lutheran church politics. I'm telling you true story. We had a warehouse, a Lutheran World Service warehouse, right? That all the items they're supposed to be for Lutherans. But when the election came, those that were not in that camp were not given quilt. And majority of the people that were given quilt were from Bishop Harris's camp. So you see how it divided the church at that time. At the end of that election, there was no reconciliation processes that went on. In fact, the assignment of our pastors became a punishment. If you did not support the status quo, you will be sent to a rural parish that could not even pay you a dime. So in most instances, most of the pastors did not take assignment to those places. Those were grievances that we accumulated for ourselves. And the amazing thing has always been, after an election, the new bishop must pay attention to how he brings the pastors and the congregation together. That has always been the missing link. When they get there, they want to pay attention to the projects. It's good. But those that are working within the projects, they got relationship with each other. If they are not speaking, you can rest assured that the project will never, ever be well. Because people will work in a way that will satisfy them. Some of them will come late. Some of them will not even pay attention to it. Some of them will not even be there because they don't talk to this person. They don't talk to that person. Like I said, I've not done much more analysis, but these are everyday things because we became the forerunner of most of these things. We took part in most of the church politics. We took part in most of the historical activities of the church. So you see, the system is built in a way that it gives one person or one group power to lead the church in whatever way that they want to lead the church into. What does the Constitution say about election of bishop? Are we supposed to be having third terms? How does it fit with those that are prepared to run at that time? And then the pastors got together and said, we can't do this because this person is already there. These are ways that the system of the church has been operating. The much more newer one that we talk about, that we need to talk about right now, is the whole issue about the transition between the old and the new bishop. And I will tell you that the people are playing it very much diplomatically. But if you look at the ground, the foot soldiers are the ones that are really, really, you can see, or you saw the exchanges on Facebook. But the pastors are pastors.
Right.
They are pastors. So they know that it exists, but they don't want to talk about it. The bishops are bishops. Don't denigrate the bishop. Don't talk about what the bishop did. And, so the common people, says Naomi and Brother Gaku and Party A and Party B are there trying to back them, trying to stand for them, and they are in the argument. But in the end, the relationship among our bishop remains very, very much strong. So it is the ordinary people that are fighting. And these are the lay leaders that are supposed to lead the church. So these are grievances.
Brother George, that's a significant layer. That's a significant layer of the issue. That's a significant layer. The issue, to a larger extent, is caused by the leaders. and it comes with their actions being in conflict with the policies and the laws. But those who are affected are the lay people, not the
Exactly.
leaders themselves. The lay people who are divided. That's an important layer, and I wanted us to lose sight of that. I didn't want us to lose sight of that. That's why I, interrupted, so that people know that you struck a very good point. That's an important layer. Certain people violate the laws or the rules at certain levels, but they are not the ones divided and affected by their action. But the lay people are the ones affected by their action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. So in the whole process, you discover, I'm going to call the name as it is. People say mismanagement and those kinds of things, right? For example, look at during the war, we have a ministry they call Moham, the ministry to the handicapped and disabled, right? They had machine to do legs or forced legs. I want to be very clear so that everybody understands it. Forced legs, and they had roofing tile machine. They had this whole issue about a whole sawmill. What are those things? So in development time like this, those are the things that are supposed to be leading us much more into our projects.
Self-sustainability.
Self-sustainability, my brother. What has our system done about these things? Are people accountable? Are we holding each other responsible? Or the system is not just is there and it's not just working? What is the whole role of the executive council of the Lutheran Church? What do they do? How do they pass policy? Do they do an evaluation of the policy, or maybe monitor the policy to make sure that the policy is carried out, or the policies are carried out in a right way that benefits, quote unquote, the church? Because if the system is not working, you can rest assured that even the subsystem and the relationship will not work. If the system was working, there would have been a clause or something there, or policy that would have controlled people's behavior, accelerates behavior when they go to convention. Where is that instrument? So in the end, they make recommendation to suspend, or they deny you from taking part in the election. Is that what the policies say? Which part of the policy that say that? So these are the things that.
So Brother Josh, you really provided some degree of enlightenment here. I know my colleagues can't wait to come in with some questions. But let me say so far, for the sake of our audience, that you went as far back as the beginning of the transition between the mission church and the national church. And you put it in a very good perspective, beginning with the first bishop, with the transition from the missionaries to the first bishop, where we begin to have a national leadership. And that transition has some serious missteps. In the first place, there was no education. There was no information about what we should expect, what the transition would have meant for the lives of the people, the Liberian people, the common people who were not used to paying offering, who were used to getting free healthcare services, who were used to getting free ration. Here's the transition that took place without any information that was going to change, and for them to embrace that. So that alone hurt them significantly. That was the beginning of a system problem that hurt them in a way that they felt robbed. In the first place, they felt robbed because they were not receiving those free things anymore. And they were being required to pay offering. That was a form of enlightenment. So that was a realistic beginning of hurting people, and that is psychological. that would
Yeah.
determine that actually helped to determine their level of support as Lutherans. It helped to define their Lutheranism, the strength of their Lutheranism. That was the beginning of it. The other part of it was that you had a bishop who later became vice president during the crisis period. Was that what many Lutherans wanted to be known by? That they were people who belonged to a faith where their leader was
Exactly.
involved directly in mainstream politics, in national politics. That was part of it. And probably the other part of it was that you had a bishop who also took over without being elected, not through any process, but a group of people just endorsed him for the entire church. And then he took over, he succeeded himself. And then through some kind of kangaroo arrangement, for the lack of better word, he succeeded himself for a third term. And just for the record, I wrote him, and let me say here publicly, since you initiated it, Brother George, I wrote late Bishop, Harris, personally, and said to him that it was not a place for him to succeed himself for the third term. I wanted to be on the record because I wrote him and said to him that that wouldn't demonstrate any good leadership. And so as a son, because he used to call me his son, as a son, I was advising him not to succeed himself. It wouldn't mean well for the church. I was very proud to put myself on record for that. And I know what it cost me between the late bishop and I. We went for 2 years, almost not talking to each other. We only started talking to each other when he decided to run for the Sunday seat in Buffalo, when he and I reconnected and started to converse. Peace unto his ashes. But I'm just highlighting that as an example of how Lutherans have felt differently about the different issues that has affected the church over the period, and how people have been reacting to those different actions that serve as sources of hurt for them and have created some form of trauma. So I think you put it in a very good perspective. But how has our reconciliation programs helped to deal with some of these issues? Because now you're talking about the man to man, and I'm sure people are very eager. They want to know how have our reconciliation process, our trauma healing and reconciliation process, help to deal with some of these systemic issues. And after that, now I will go to my colleagues. It's going to be Abel next. Abel, another specialist, but that will be my last question for this round. And then from there, we'll go to Brother Liawali.
Okay, thank you, Josiah. And that is just the missing link, right? We got an institution that has gained worldwide recognition for the kind of job they do in healing and reconciliation in Liberia, in Sierra Leone, in Guinea. Do you know that the reconciliation arms of the Lutheran Church did training in Sierra Leone and Guinea and Ghana? Yes, they did.
Only because I read about it. Yeah.
Yeah. They did. That is a missing arm. The institution is there. But the problem is they don't target our own establishment. They don't have much more program in our own establishment that talks about our ills. We train people. We resolve conflicts outside, but we've not been able to come back in-house. The very first time I did training for the pastors in Totota, I talk about the issue about the upward denial, and I will call it that for lack of better words. I mean, we all can be in a church. We all got master's degree and people trying to elect. When it's election time, people speak Pele, people speak Loma. That is the time. They speak all these things. And then once you don't identify with the Pele or the Loma, I mean, I agree that election is about numbers, but the numbers come through influences. So one of the missing links is the trauma healing program. How can we redesign it in a way that it looks much more about our system in a way that correct or improve our relationship with each other, whether in the system, the bigger system, the Lutheran Church, whether in our auxiliaries, the men, the women, the children, and the parishes. How can the Lutheran Church or the trauma healing program redirect its attention? Another missing link is post-bishopric election. Everybody is anxious and eager to see what the new bishop program will be like. Not much is mentioned about reconciliation. So after 6 months, people get weak and like, oh, this is the same 6 and 7. Look at the churches after elections. The churches can be packed. After 6 months, the expectation of people are not met. The reconciliatory expectation of people are not met. People want people to tell them, look, the way we ran the elections, it wasn't good. I mean, the campaign, our campaign has never been good. We bite each other, but even after that on Sunday, it is the same pastor that we're going to sit on to discuss. So the one of the missing link is that the post-election planning from the bishop's office, has it reflected reconciliation? That's another link. Another missing link is that much more information flow. How does the executive council follow up to make sure that decisions are being implemented from top to bottom and from bottom to top? Because if it was happening, maybe by this time we would have gotten a clear understanding of the women program, what is going on with them. Maybe we would have solved it. If the executive council would have asked, how far is this going, or they just made a decision and turn around, they don't know how much it has affected the women department. They don't know how much the women department has been divided and almost like a social club. And in the end, the same people involved with the conflict were elected. Don't you know situation like that might divide the church or the women? Women are proud people. They are not like men that let things go easily. I'm not sure if there were some reconciliation activities between them and how they handled it before the elections. And if they did not handle it well, Boa, congratulations, but you will have tough time. I can tell you from my background, you will have tough time because you are a part of a very bigger conflict. Another missing link is that where is our communication department? We used to have Lutheran Church publications. I understand. I know that Peter Wilson used to run something like that. Where is it? Now, let me tell you the opportunities. We got one opportunity depending on how we can use it. The phenomenon, Man-Lutheran connection. This platform is a very good platform, and it depends on which side of the aisle you want to be at. If you see it as something positive, you will support it for it to grow. If you see it as something negative, you will go against it because you think that it will be causing or stirring confusion. Because when they discuss Lutheranism and then bringing our dirty clothes outside in a respectful manner to wash it, you get angry and then you walk away. But it is an opportunity that will help us to grow much more if we just outline our priorities and our discussions and our activities in a way that becomes transparent. The Lutheran Church lacks transparency and accountability, trust me. How was the decision reached for the bishop's residence to be turned into something else? How did that come about?
Brother Josh, Brother George, I can understand what's going on in your mind right now, but let me just let you take some deep breath in right now. Folks, you are tuned to my Lutheran Connections Online TV MLC Talk. One Lutheran said today, Josiah, how about MLC talk. Willie, I'm going crazy with this MLC talk. Says
MLC talk,
couple.
yeah, that's
I don't know how that sounds to you, but he just said it to me. It just came out in our conversation. He said, Josiah, how about you guys be called MLC talk? You know, but that's a discussion for another time.
right.
Brother Abel, we want you to come in here, and Brother Abel Yawale has also some good background in reconciliation, in common healing and reconciliation. Brother Yawale is over here. Somebody's background
I think it's very literally.
is
Thank you so much, Joe. Thank you so much, Uncle
Brother
George.
Yawale, your background is noisy a
Yeah,
little bit.
I'm sorry. The guys are doing. I don't know,
Oh,
crusade or
next door.
whatever,
Okay. Yeah, go
right
ahead.
behind my house. So I even close the
Having
window
a crusade.
so I could control, minimize the
Right.
noise. Unfortunately, it's not happening. But
Go
uh,
ahead. I think it'll be all right.
to be frank with you, I love the angle at which Brother George have actually addressed or is addressing this whole issue of reconciliation. And I love the historicity that he's bringing out. There are just too many things that have happened in our church. And I love the angles in which he also started addressing this angle from the horizontal reconciliation point of view that has to do with relationship building between people, you know. But I was also thinking, on the contrary, of the vertical aspect, that the two are almost equal or they have some level of similarities. Because vertical reconciliation also deal with power dynamics are involved, which Brother George clearly specified, reaching from the days of Bishop Beam to Bishop Diggs, and then eventually to Bishop Harris onward to Bishop Jensen. There have been a lot of power struggle that have been moving back and forth, and that has eventually dragged to the lay people and among the pastors, bringing the two angle, both horizontal and vertical, very cardinal to this whole process. And one other issues that Brother George is bringing out is that genuine reconciliation requires the acknowledgement of the past wrong. You know, there have been too many missing links, there have been too many wrongs that have taken place in this church. I don't know for what reasons, but in my mind, I'm thinking maybe because of limited resources, like pastors and lay people that are all scrapping. Imagine you have fewer programs, and those programs, only pastor can be director for most of those programs, almost 90%. If you are not pastor, it also tells you that no matter what qualification you have within the church, you will never be director of program, even if you have the expertise.
Yeah.
And sometimes it even goes wrong. Some of the pastors are kind of misplaced in departments, all because it calls for a pastor becoming a director, you know. And all these things kind of bring about power imbalances, bringing about injustices, bringing about oppression, you know, among church members, among pastors, and so forth. But I quickly want to just ask Brother George one simple question that maybe we could be thinking on as we navigate through this discussion. And that question could be like, now that we understand all of these different dynamics and struggles among church members and among ministers of our church, what do you think could be the way forward? You know, how can we bridge the gaps? How can we bring people together in the midst of limited resources, in the midst of the power struggle, in the midst of what are happening, and too many things are going about? How can we bridge the gaps and stop all of these, or try to kind of minimize it in bringing the church back together?
Thank you very much, Brother Evaluel. We need to look at our system. Our system needs to be looked at in a very critical way. Um, every conflict drivers within the system must be addressed. I'm not talking about going to the historicity of the Lutheran Church. I mean, there will not be time that you want to share kerosene on people. That time has passed. But let's go back to the whole issue of elections. What does the system say about election? Is there a way that we can look at it and make it clear in our constitution that, I mean, each term is one, then you can go for a second term, and after that you can go for a third term. Is it now clear in the constitution? So it can be an issue about how you want to do it. It can be an issue about relativism. It cannot be an issue about we are the spiritual head, we can decide this. We need to look at it. Our system needs to develop a way forward on re-looking at what the whole elections law says in the Lutheran Church in Liberia. We need to make use of the trauma healing program, like I said. They got expertise. We need to look at that. We need to look at the new bishop and challenge him much more. For him to open, I mean, the projects he's doing, they are fine. But he needs to look at the human component of it. He needs to develop a program along with the trauma healing program and see how they can begin to address those conflict triggers, especially among the subsystem, the auxiliaries, the parishes. When we were growing up, the competition used to be between St. Peter's and Bowman's Parish. Every time we went on came, there was something between St. Peter's and Bowman Parish, but that was on a much more lower level, so it did not go up there. So we need to look at the trauma healing program in a way that it serves as a conflict monitor for the church, a go-betweener. That department can be quiet. I was even surprised. They got women in the department. We got Viva Flomo, we got Mrs. Esther Harris, we got the Nobel Peace Laureate, Mrs. Lehman. I was thinking that they could intervene, they would have intervened. I really thought that they would have intervened. These are people that we need to come back to and see how they can help the church to strengthen its reconciliatory arms for itself first before going out. And I can tell you the truth, Josiah, whether you believe it or not, this computer age, the churches are going to be challenged much more because nothing will be remained hidden again. No way. Everything will be exposed, whether you like it or not. People that are working in the system, if they want something done and they think that it is the right thing and then you refuse to do it, they will slide all records and send it to some people that will publish it. So they need to be transparent. The bishop must have a third eye of reconciliation in the church very strongly. Those are some ways. And
I have a follow-up question.
Let me just conclude. I also think that there must be a month that we just preach reconciliation in our church. The whole Lutheran Church just preach reconciliation and talk about the importance of people-to-people reconciliation in all our churches. And let it be the responsibilities of the pastors to do it. Just preach of reconciliation. Yeah, Brother Ibrahim, go ahead.
Now this is my follow-up question, Brother George. We know that the conflict within the church is kind of filtering down. It continues to deepen. We see it coming down even to the ground. Like today, we are talking about the National Lutheran Women Fellowship, for example. They are currently at loggerhead with each other. And many people are afraid that where this conflict had entered, it would be very challenging, very, very challenging to have it solved. We have been reading some literatures around this. But in the discussions tonight, what can we do, or what can the parties involved in this conflict, or how can they engage in a productive dialogue, a compromise, and what role can you and other people, other actors, other peace building actors play within this process, so that we will not have it flipping from the women departments to the youth department and that of the youth, let's say that of the men's department.
Well, the first thing, Abel, thank you. One of the much more opportunity we have had to have solved this problem is the suggestion some of us have been making, that the two parties stay aside and pull somebody from the middle. Unfortunately, it did not happen. So it increased the conflict to a very higher level. So it's like a system sanctioned decision.
Brother Josh, our audience didn't get you. We want you to go over that response once more because you were sticking somehow the glitches,
Okay.
the technical glitches.
I said one opportunity we had to have solved this problem is the suggestion some of us have made before the elections, that the both parties stand aside for the love of the church and let a neutral person or somebody much more in the middle takes leadership of the women organization. But the way it has gone, one party has gained the victory over the other party. If you build a system on victimized and the victorious people, you create a system that will never easily forget. You make one person as the loser, another person as the winner. You got a lot more things to do. So the conflict has escalated one step. I understand that they had session on reconciliation and there were two questions asked. I don't know how in depth did they go into. So maybe one way we could do to soften the problem is those that are aggrieved be talked to more and more, because what you've done, you made them powerless more. You made them to know that their voice does not count. You make them to know that um, you don't mean much to the church. And I read this letter Pastor Pay sent around. I don't know. I mean, when I heard the decision that the election was won by Sis Yamamboa, I said congratulations. But she herself had a lot of things to do. She must take the lead as a leader to go across the bridge. That's the first thing she needs to do, and not as a hero or heroine or maybe a victor, but just as an ordinary woman, to see how she can talk to her colleague. But it has been like the system confirmed Yama and made it the election ground something for her. She didn't have much more competition. So everywhere in the corners they're saying that's how they wanted it. They don't need us. So it's difficult to delve into that kind of conflict. But it can be worked on. We do
Wonderful.
much more
Thank,
engagement.
thank you so much, Brother George. Brother Abel, do you still have a follow-up? You asked two significant questions. Do you still have another follow-up?
No, I will pause here now and wait for
Or you can come back
other
another round.
panelists to
Yeah.
ask questions. Though I have more questions, but I will do that later on, maybe at the closing.
Yeah, you can just set up your next you can just prepare your next set of questions. We will have Sis Couple coming in, but I thought that Willie Abe asked a very good question about where the church stands now. The fact that the election was held and they already have the winner to be one of those who is involved in the conflict. I don't know if that was a missed opportunity on the part of the leadership
That
to really
was
the opportunity to move ahead with genuine reconciliation. I don't know. I'm not saying that. I'm only asking because what I know from the election being held. But Sis Couple, is over to you. Take it from me right here with your questioning.
Thank you, senior brother, Sunday Josh. I listened to your trend analysis when it comes to the historicity of our past leader. And what I learned from that is that, like you said, every time another leader comes, another grief is piled up, is piled up, is piled up, and it has piled up even up to present. And that it doesn't show any sign of peace. Because once people are hurt, the next thing you will find that everybody will be cheeky. As soon you step on my toes, anyone tell you hello, it becomes a problem. So in this light, what can we do as a church during and after election period to stop us from getting at each other? During and after election, what can we do as a church? Because we continue to part of if this after this election, if we don't look at, we don't find solution of our griefs, of our hurt, we ignore it and we all move on. We say okay, we will heal ourselves, and at times go by, everybody adjusts. But we enter another one again, it comes up. So what can we do as a church that after these elections period we will not get at each other?
Thank you. That's the $1 million question. What can we do? We need to identify those that were hurt in the process. That's the very first thing we need to do. We must acknowledge that things went wrong. Based on our acknowledgement, we need to identify those that didn't work with us from our camp, quote unquote, as they say, and be able to reconcile with them, whatsoever it was. We need to look at our elections period. We need to do a document that we all were agreed on that we should not run campaign for a church election, that we are doing wally campaign. And we must make sure that we follow those tenets that we agreed to. And if anybody did it, that person must be brought out into the public, into the open, and reprimanded, so that it serves as a deterrent for would-be violators. That part of the church is a very, very critical part. After the elections, we need reconciliation. And the new bishop much more must have in his new program much activities or many activities of reconciliation, so that people become a part of it. So when one person wins, it means everybody wins. So we can see each other as loser and victors.
And another thing is, can we continue to violate our rules and regulation or our constitution only in the name of after election we go for reconciliation? As soon we have our constitution, it says XYZ, and we intentionally as a church violate it only in the name of after it will reconcile with the people, man. So should we continue to do that as a church? Who should be seen as an example? Instead, we going the other way around. Should we only in the name of after everything we will reconcile?
What does the Constitution say? That's where we need to start from. Are those laws ready on the books? If they are on the books, then we must implement them to the letter. That's the beginning. Let's go into our Constitution and see what it says about elections. And if it is not clear yet, let's do it in the very big, bold banner way for everybody to read it. Let's distribute the Constitution across the Lutheran Church. Let people have the copy, let them read it so they know their rights when it comes to elections. If they are on the books, let's follow them. If they are not there, let's include them. That would be the beginning for me.
Thank you. Sis Couple, still have questions?
Yeah. Yes, yeah, I'm still. We all know that Some of the key points about reconciliation is for us to acknowledge and deal with the past. But what happens as a church if we don't acknowledge such thing? So why should we ignore it? And that's a key point for reconciliation. And we just play it. We don't acknowledge the past. We don't deal with the past, and we still want to reconcile people. Does that does it work for us, or will it work for us?
Reconciliation is about building relationship after a conflict. So whatever we have done, if our relationship is not built to the point that we begin to talk to each other freely, begin to trust each other again, begin to move together and work together, it means that it's not working for us. It means that we need to re-engage it in a very, very much stubborn way to make sure that it works. Reconciliation has components. It talk about mercy, it talk about truth, it talk about justice, and there where leadership comes in. If we want to look at the vertical reconciliation, God punished us, but He also saved us by sending His Son. That's leadership. So I hope that the executive council have punished these people and brought them back and say, look, we did it because of A, B, C, D reasons. So we hope that you learn from it and then let them know that this is what happened and they were supposed to be punished for it and they were not punished according to the level of the sin they committed or the crime they committed. There where leadership comes in. It cannot always be an eye for an eye, especially for the very first time. Sometimes it can be too harsh. So even though there must be justice, but most instances, you temper justice with mercy.
Yeah. 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 You temper justice with mercy. Couple, there couldn't have been any good way to end your section. Temper justice with mercy. I think Brother George got that right. And couple, those were very good questions from the church's standpoint in terms of what really can be done to address the issues in the church. And Brother George, from the science, true healing and reconciliation is only possible where there is acknowledgement, truthfulness, and acceptance. Where there's acknowledgement, truthfulness, and acceptance. Everybody have to be truthful. In fact, least to mention whoever is a mediator or facilitator in the process, you have to be trusted. And that only comes with a high degree of accountability and trustworthiness, honesty, demonstrated by you. I don't want to put my hands in Abel's throat or in Willie's throat because it's Willie coming next with his set of questions. I don't know what he has. But Brother George, keep this maybe for after Willie's round of questioning. Are we missing something here as a church when it comes to accountability, honesty, truthfulness? Because we should not be talking about reconciliation, healing and reconciliation to this extent, to this magnitude as a church. It should only be happening when there is a serious accountability issue, when there is a serious trustworthy issue, when we are not following our own policies, our own laws. Yeah, so please keep that in mind for later. Now I will go to my colleague Willie, who have been waiting impatiently. Willie, it's over to you.
I think what's the name? Abel had a. I just gave Abel a minute. He had a follow-up.
Oh, Abel, please. Abel, you have an advocate here, Willie.
Yes, sorry. Kopo was striking a very good point, and I wanted Brother George to further elaborate on this when it comes to reconciliation. Now we understand most of the problem. Let's say we know that problem exists, not that we understand until proper analysis is done. We know that problem exists, especially the one in the Women's Fellowship is very vivid. But my question to Brother George is, I know trauma healing carry on some reconciliation process the other day, but it seems to be like there's every time they talk about it, there's an escalation within the process. But how can the process of reconciliation be designed to be more inclusive and participatory and to address the needs and concerns of all of the parties and stakeholders involved in this process moving forward?
Moving forward, we need to identify the real actors. Who are those genuinely involved in the conflict? Is it one, two persons? Who are the supporters? Where do they get their strength from? Where do they get their powers from? You must identify those people. Because if you don't identify them and then you call two persons to the discussion table, when they leave, they go back to their group, their support group. They say, "Look, forget about what they built." And the other people say they won't be women. Leave them alone. So you see, one person has power, but there's much bigger power in the relationship than within the person. So you need to identify who they get their strength from. And when you talk to that base, the base is going to make them adhere to whatever they would tell her. That's another one. Another one is that you really need to look at the root cause of this conflict. What really the conflict is about? Have we identified the conflict, the root cause? Why were people yelling and acting other the way? What really the problem is or was? Was it about election? Or was it about dominance, power, and control? Somebody want to prove that I am the person that's supposed to be here and nobody will be there. And if it is about power and control, it means that you have to dissolve the powers. And that's unfortunate because it has passed. There's no way you can do power dissolution because one of the main actor in the conflict is now the president.
Yeah.
How do you dissolve that conflict? But it's not late. Like I said, we can still identify people, bring them around the table, and ask what really was the problem. And Yama must leave this particular section because she is the president. If she wants her administration to be fine, there are people in our group that are hardworking. Let her include them in her government and give them power to do the job as they want to do under their constitution. It should not be, I mean, winner eats all.
Hmm. Willie,
Yeah.
it
Wow.
shouldn't be winner. It shouldn't be winner eats all.
It shouldn't be winner
No.
eats all. Yeah.
Carry you.
You know. Wow.
Couple, what you say? Couple, you just said the thing you said, then you made yourself unavailable.
No, I'm asking whether the presentation carry him or the talk from Senior
Oh
carry
no,
him.
no,
He's so
I'm
relaxed.
actually I'm
Quiet.
actually carried. You know, speaking with such an individual, you know, a product, especially of our church, which I'm so much proud of. I mean, and how he's dealing with the issue. This is, to be honest with you, this is my first time really sitting with the CM brother, diving into issue of reconciliation. You know, to be honest, and he, and I mean, he was right when he put it from the very beginning. He named those who are actors in reconciliation. He mentioned Big Joe. He mentioned Abel. But I would tell him that I'm not a pastor, but I'm an acolyte. Even though I was asked to go to seminary, I've been asked to go to seminary, but I'm an acolyte. And
Brother
Big
George and all,
Joe
brother
should
George
know
and
that.
all is me reminded about the acolyte
Yeah.
thing. There is
Big-
nobody
Big-
that comes on this show here that will leave from here without knowing that Willie was an acolyte. In fact, he can't even say was.
No,
He
I
almost
am an
say, I am
acolyte.
an acolyte.
Yeah.
No, people.
I am an
Also,
acolyte, and I can
also
spring
you
into
never
action
died.
at any time. So, CM brother, you know, um, as we discussed the topic today, it's something that came to mind. And Bijo, you know, when he said, "Oh, I don't want to put my finger in Willie's throat," I think he tried a little bit, but it brings me to mind of responsibility. I think reconciliation also has to do with responsibility, and this passage might not be direct, but I think it kind of hold us to some extent when it comes to responsibility. We, in my understanding, will lead to reconciliation, which is 1 John 1:9, where we says that, if we confess our sin, he's faithful and just to forgive us from all,
Right.
unrighteousness. I think when we understand, take responsibility and say, yes, I know that I've done this, I've come to you for forgiveness. God is willing to forgive. I think that's come from that passage. But also Matthew 5:16 say, let our light so shine before men that they may see our good work and glorify our Father which is in heaven. During the conversation, you talked about how the system is set up in a way where in one group of people, in power, and once they see themselves in power, the rest of the other people are like, kind of insignificant. Um, Looking at Matthew 5:16, which also forms part of the acolyte's prayer, will you state that as a church we are shining that light? Are we shining that light? And I say this because in order to carry on reconciliation, I think we need to be that light, the light that reconciles us with God, vertically, and then we can also do it horizontally. So, I mean, if you can speak on that first, then I can just chime in with my second question, please.
Um, Before I get to that question, Willie, repentance is a process by which you evaluate yourself, show remorse. That is that the whole section there is your responsibility to change. Yes, to acknowledge that you were
You
wrong,
ready to sleep?
to
You
ask for
sure?
forgiveness,
All right.
to ask for forgiveness. That is your responsibility. For the church light shining, Willie, I'm not sure I can readily say if it is shining or not because I don't have a theological criteria for me to examine um, if our church light is still shining. But what I can allude to is there are problems, and because of those problems, it have affected our relationship. And because our relationships are affected, the system is affected, and our church as a whole is affected. So for us to come back, we must look at those situations and improve on them, solve them in a way that it makes us free to bound to each other again.
Thank you so
Yes,
much,
it's our
brother. Yeah,
responsibility.
thank you so much, and it's well, you know, well put. My next question has to do with this. Reconciliation man to man. Um, is it about finding who is right, who is wrong, who's saying the right thing, who has the bigger power, or who has more, who have more authority, or it's about finding common ground when it comes to reconciliation man to man?
Well, reconciliation has so many processes. I mean, most often when people are sincere in conflict, they know the role they play. They know the roles they play. They know if those roles are good or bad. So if you are sincere and committed to the process, you will know you're wrong and you yourself will confess you're wrong when people are sincere. So you don't have to pick them up. And that is what is called genuine reconciliation. Look, Willie, you did this to me, but I was angry and I had to pay this way. I'm sorry. You know your fault in a genuine reconciliation process. Most of the times, people do it to serve as a deterrent. That's why I said you confess your sin. There are people that are wrong, there are people that are right. But if you are wrong, should we punish you? And I said, there where leadership comes in. What is applicable? Do you punish everybody that have sinned? Do you punish them to the merit of the sin or to the merit of the wrong? Because the Bible says we should chastise our children in love.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So you can still be the bishop, you can punish people in a way that they know that you love them, but because you're trying to help them to improve.
Yeah.
This is why in our tradition, we don't beat our children and kick them out. We beat them and then we control them, we bring them closer to us
Yes.
and tell them, don't cry. Do you know why I beat you? Said no, you did A, B, C, D. Then they learn.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
But you punish and push, is not going to improve anything.
Wow.
I like that part, Willie, when they are whooping you, they're telling you don't cry. Willie, you doing it to your beginner too?
Oh yeah.
I love that.
When they whoop you, they say, let me just hear you there. But
Yeah.
meanwhile, the Roy is still going back and forth.
One of my male he will look in your face. He want for you to tell him sorry when he did wrong and you you try to punish him. He
Josiah,
know that he did wrong.
Yeah,
Then he will look in your face. He want you to tell him sorry.
uh, it is not good to do that, right? I mean, when you inflict pain, whether intentionally or unintentionally, huh? You can't tell the person already feeling pain. They are child, they can't control their emotion. So when you say don't cry, they sort of
The
like,
hope is to cry it out.
Yeah, then he started
yeah,
crying.
they
Yeah.
cry out, and then in the end, you give them some fruits or something they like, and then you ask them, do you know
Absolutely.
why? Do you know why I beat you?
Yep.
I beat you because of A, B, C, D.
You can talk
I
about
don't
it.
expect it. Yes, then you can talk about it.
That's true.
Right.
And that is how leadership is supposed to be.
Right.
I mean, we commit the worst sin.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But if we're going to punish people according to the way they have done wrong, the prison combat will be packed.
Yeah.
You won't even talk to your children. You won't even talk to your wife, or your wife will not even talk to you, bro. Trust
No,
me.
not at all. Not at all.
But the
Uh,
chastise in love.
right. Brother Willie.
Yeah.
What? Still got questions for
No.
Hilo?
I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm
So
yeah.
So I like those two questions you asked and the biblical references you provided, because as you rightfully said, that was where I was going, actually, Willie. That's where I was going, questioning the standing of the church in this serious matter, healing and reconciliation in our church. And I was just wondering, Brother Josh indicated from the outset of the show that, he and I were in grad school together. We did peace studies and a reconciliation in grad school. Conflict transformation, sorry, in grad school. So one of the simple methods, Brother Josh, and I just been wondering, I'm not questioning our trauma healing program right now, but one of the simple methods I thought they would have used would be the tree approach, the tree strategy to help the leadership to intervene in this matter. And the easiest thing I thought they would have done could be the AAR measure, where they do assessment, they do analysis, and then they do recommendation, because they won't make the decision, but they will do a thorough assessment to establish the causes of the problems within the women. And that's the AAR approach. You assess, you cross-examine the entire organization, all of the root causes and everything, both remote and immediate, and then you'll be able to do analysis of that and then recommend to the LCL leadership in terms of what's supposed to be done. I thought independently by itself the trauma healing program would do that without even somebody directing it to do that, because that was required given the magnitude of the problem. So I was also just wondering, Brother Josh, why you think nothing like that will be done by the trauma healing program itself. And again, it boils down to what you said from the beginning. Pay more attention to helping other people outside than concentrating on what we can do internally to solve our own problems. We have our trauma healing program that we set up to help ourselves as a church. I think that should be fundamental. That's the first thing they should be doing. Assessing, looking at every area, looking at the pension scheme, looking at the different areas, looking at the different organizations, looking at the different leaderships, the pastors, the preaching point, the parishes. They don't have to wait to be called. I think they should do their own analysis and coming up with recommendations They should be doing some forewarning, some forecasting, and
Yeah.
advising the LC. I don't know what the mandate of the trauma healing program is, but I thought that is enshrined in the mandate. If it is not, probably you can help us with that in terms of what it was when you were there. But they should be doing forecasting. They should be doing analysis and advising the leadership on actions to take. Like that, you can forewarn and you can prevent. Early warning system has to be in place, and then you can prevent most of these things from happening, from escalating. For example, the women situation, the women fellowship, like we all said, is unfortunate that it's reached this point. I don't know how the new president will call on those who were involved to sit on the same table and start to have conversation on this matter that they both have interest in.
That's
I
the
don't know
problem.
how the current national leadership, Honor Bishop Patmo, foresaw that, or how they try to analyze it in terms of how that will appear, because I'm just wondering how they're going to do that. These are all questions that are lingering. And please forgive me if it is anything that's trying to rock the boat a little bit. But forgive me, I can't help it, but I have to say it because that's what my thoughts are right now. Brother Willie, we can take our viewers right now.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Wonderful.
Yeah, sure. And quickly, we want to recognize our sister, Maureen Molva. She's there. She celebrated her birthday quite recently. If I want to say happy birthday to you as well. Our brother Roger Aben Camon, we want to recognize you. Our ambassador is there. He's in flight. So he's gonna be joining us.
Willie, this man is on the plane or he driving from Monrovia to Freetown?
No, he's in flight. He's in flight,
Okay.
actually. Yeah, he's in flight, and he
So
says
that
that
the new thing,
he said he's
they may will
enjoying
come
Hilo
here.
One.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, Ambassador, we hear you.
Our mother of Liga Bia want to recognize you, and also our Reverend Wokolo Colley, our sister Vera Wilson. Vera Wilson from Salala. Imagine that. Our sister Sombi, Cynthia Smith. She's inviting all of her villagers to come and watch, come to service. And our pastor there from the Oro, Gaytown Oro, Sumopi Kokolo. We're just jumping
Willie,
in
you
between.
may say, some can complain. She not inviting people to watch you. Read that thing. Some like complaining. But she telling me that in a connection issue she's talking about. I can get connected easily.
Naomi Modiba, and Miller, my village people, ready again. Can get connected. Oh, okay. She was trying to connect, but she is connected.
I told you, I said that girl was complaining. They're not great things she was doing. I know somebody.
Yeah, our Reverend Smoky Cockler, he's there. Our sister Comfort Twelve. This is Sakwi, right?
That's Sakwi. That woman is Sakwi.
Yeah,
Sakwi.
Yeah. She's watching her from Sierra Leone. Maybe she's next door, with the ambassador. I'm telling the ambassador we are here, and our brother.
Read your messages.
Yeah, she said I'm following
the
from
ambassador in a situation.
Our sister Comfort Sakwi is there. And our brother Elijah Zina is there in Minneapolis. He said great analysis. That's when our senior brother was talking about the trying to do analysis of the church from the early stage. So he said great analysis of the origin of conflict within the LCL. Big brother Sonny, the pastors of the LCL have always been the source of Did
Elijah really say that?
No, I did not put this on here. His picture is here. His name is here. So that's Elijah Zina.
We hear you,
all
brother
right.
Zina. We hear what the pastors will say.
Yeah, our sister Comfort Sakwi and says that exactly reconciliation process is very critical for the entire LCL. There are lots to be done. Until then, the progress of our church remains questionable. That is
Really?
strong. That is very, very strong. Yeah.
It's strong.
Uh,
That's strong.
yeah,
Questionable?
that is strong. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. So this is the Reverend Willie Heenan. Reverend Willie Heenan is just here with me in the state of Georgia, the sunny state of Georgia. So he said the doctors who treat people are
It's
not
not about
able to treat themselves or herself. He said that was due to misplacement of qualified professionals in the THRP program within the LCL. So
wow.
that's just what he's saying. Our dear brother Rich Kid Kennedy, he's
That
viewing from
sounds
his
sweet.
home,
Mhm.
and also Reverend Willie Hina is here again. He said regarding bishop elections, his history yesterday and today shows that no other tribe is particularly allowed to become bishop of the LCL. Local dialects are always spoken, directing voters who to vote for during elections, something, and that creating misfeeling among others. So
So
I
he's
think,
talking about tribalism
yeah,
in the church.
Yeah.
tribalism. Yeah, tribalism. Um, our brother Daniel Baba Wile, I think he's a reverend, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Reverend Wile.
Yeah.
He's watching us from Ghana. We want to recognize you. He's watching us from Ghana. And our brother Jeremiah Gavler, brother Jeremiah Gavler is watching us from Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Mhm.
Brother Jeremiah, I hope you are doing well in the winter. Uh, our brother Faith, Hope, and Lord from St. Matthew's Parish, he said reconciliation, 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 and then, it's endless reconciliation. Um, our brother Elijah Zina, conflict is part of our everyday existence as humans. But without proper system and policy implementation to regulate conflict within our institutions, we are going nowhere. The reason why we can't achieve true reconciliation within our church is that people are fake and unprofessional, self-centered, and lied to each other. Like we are not Christians, all because of our self gain. We slander people's character without fights and many more. As church, we have to set a simple, we have to set example for the society. So, reading this from Brother Elijah again, it brings me back to my acolyte's prayer. It says, let your light so shine, before men. I mean, Josiah, you don't want to take that, but I'm an acolyte. I mean, I serve as St. Peter's with the late
It's
Reverend
always impressive, man.
Reverend Allison. I serve with Reverend Allison, Joseph T. Allison. That's the pastor. When you serve
Hey,
with
keep
him,
on implicating
you need
the
to make
pastor.
sure that he has everything, because he will mount the pulpit and then forget his glasses. Then he you got to go to the parish, the
Reverend Allison?
yes,
You're trying to say that Reverend Allison used to forget his glasses?
the late Joseph T. Allison. You serving with, he got to be very smart and
Are you
careful. You got to
scared?
make sure
Hey,
everything.
just now
I
you said
serve
Brother
with him.
Ephraim, you said Brother Ephraim Allison, now you
No,
change
no,
to
no.
his
I said Joseph Allison. Listen, I'm an acolyte. I know all my pastors. Come on, the Reverend Willie Hune is here again. We need to look at accountability on the part of our various leaders, specifically those who head programs department will focus on how funds are dispensed. LCL needs to also look at our real estate realistically. Okay. Okay, Reverend Willahina is here again. Reconciliation cannot be successful without justice. People who are involved in these conflict situations need to be brought before a body of adjudication of the LCL to respond to their participation in conflicts as we see today.
Then
Then
they won't come.
sorry.
Right, Brother Josh? Then they won't come.
Then we have the Reverend John K. Smo. The Reverend John
This
K.
is
Smo.
getting interesting, buddy. Reverend someone is responding to Elijah.
I
Yeah,
stand.
he talked to the pastors, not
Pastor,
me. He talked to the
the
pastors.
pastor is
The pastor responding to him, and guess what? Elijah is a pastor's son, so he know what he put in his foot. He's a pastor's son. Yes. So Elijah Zina, unfortunately that unfortunate that you had to classify your pastors, including your dad, as always been a source of conflict or trouble in the LCL. Is the church composed of pastors only? We have the various groupings in the body, the LCL, men, women, and youth. For me, I would say that the Reverend Eric Zina baptized me at Bombing Lutheran Church, Christ Lutheran Church in Bombing. So that's my pastor when it comes to the LCL, the Reverend Eric Zina. Reverend Hina is here again. He says the current LCL leadership needs to be very proactive to handle all those conflicts. Ending iron to or unresolved, these intra-church conflicts will have bad consequences for further generation in our church. I think he's right about that. Our sister Wata Florence Nuta is watching all the way there from her lake corner. All right. So I think there is a pastor's son and a pastor issue here now. Well, you can prove me wrong, Reverend Smo, because there are so many instances of conflict within the LCL that originated with you pastors, even with conflicts within the men, women, and youth department. Pastors are involved as part of the conflict.
This is interesting.
All right. Reverend Willie Hine, leadership within the church is actually different from secular leadership. Church leadership is purely servanthoodship. The leaders are the servants of the people they lead. I would love that all of our church leaders need to understand what is about servanthoodship. Our mother there, Victoria Nangbe Johnson, she said, "Good evening, family. Good evening, good evening." And then our Reverend Willie Hine is here again. So reconciliation consists of acknowledging wrongs committed, openly confessing those wrongs, speaking out your resolve about which freedom comes between conflicting parties. Same brother, if you've been following, this is our father here from St. Louis, Minipele K. Sumo. I'm watching the show from St. Louis, Missouri State. I served as council chairman for a long period of time at the St. Luke's Lutheran Parish in Phoebe, and I'm a witness of most of what Mr. George is saying today on the platform. To say the truth, for individuals to admit their wrongdoings, the leadership to pass the right judgment in conflict resolution in the LCL is a serious challenge. Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Our sister Comfort Sakwi is you know what? Our sister Comfort Sakwi is here quickly. She said trauma healing was waiting for order to act. Oh, okay. Trauma healing was waiting for order to act. We still are waiting.
I think she was responding to what I was saying. What were they doing instead of being proactive? Yeah.
Yeah. The Reverend Thomas Jala. I'm just listening to discourse and enriching my book to be published soon on conflict transformation from the biblical perspective in Liberia. So
you have to give some money.
You got to get some money. You got to get some money, Reverend Jala.
Wonderful, congratulations! And the little that you even collected, you got to pay for it. Also,
yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned we're going to be sending our says Julia Massacre, the people healing and reconciliation process.
The people heading, I think she wants.
Oh, the people heading. Sorry. The people heading the reconciliation process are involved in the conflict and pretending.
That passport.
That is wrong. This comfort staff from Sierra Leone again. Don't put the ambassador. Okay.
When I pass by that one, I wouldn't see it.
I passed by this one. Bonneville always been a church online. Be with me there. They are online to you. I didn't even see anything about ambassador. But anyway, I think this is our this will be our last comment for today. The senior brother Edwin Y. Weeder, he says that we need to encourage the new leadership to begin their leadership with reconciliation. It is possible, and let's encourage them to go for it. That's true. Yeah, makes sense. And the Reverend Willie Hina is laughing. Reverend Willie Hina, I'll call you from here. Over to you, Big Joe. Over to you.
Wonderful folks. We gone 1 hour 40 minutes. We don't intend to keep our guest here for more than 2 hours today. He's been very gracious with us in terms of time, and we have our wonderful panelists here, Brother Batem Ebeliawali, Sister Kopo Sele, and our exceptional host there, Willie, right there in Georgia. You guys are doing so well. I'm proud of you.
Sunny Georgia, for point of correction, Sunny Georgia.
Okay, in Sunny Georgia.
It's sunny.
Oh.
It's sunny down here.
Oh God. In Sunny Georgia. Okay, Sunny Georgia. But when I say Sunny Georgia, we just sound like Sunny is.
I'm in t-shirt.
Oh, I'm not calling Sunny George's name. So Willie, your son in Georgia ain't making sense.
It making sense that you have sunny, like you have sunny Florida, you have sunny Florida, you have sunny Georgia.
Okay, no sun in Danbury, Connecticut. I know we live in New England.
No,
here,
let's look at the weather up there.
It can be cold and it can snow here. Well, I'm informing our viewers that it snows here a lot. We always have bad weather here, like the Midwest. That is the information you want to.
You say the truth, and the truth will set you free. Thank you for saying the truth. Thank you for saying the truth.
Folks, you are tuned to my Lutheran Connection online TV, MLC Talk, coming to you today and every Sunday. We are here at this hour. We also want to say we have big news for you very soon. Our show is going to be relayed by the radio station in Zozo. We are concluding arrangement with the owners of the station. We will be heard in Bon County, in Lofa County, parts of Sierra Leone, and parts of Guinea very soon. We will be coming on, and your people that will be listening to you once you appear on the show here to talk. You will be heard there. So we're doing our best to expand our coverage. That's the big news we got for you. And when we go, when we reach to all those parts, you will be aware. You will get feedback from the calls, from the comments, and from the questions and everything. So that's the big news we've got for you today. We want to go back to our guest who can be able to conclude today's show. We will wrap up with him, but Brother George, we come back to this same question, to the reading of the comments. You yourself read some of them. What is your own impression about what Lutherans are thinking? You heard it for yourself. You watched it, you read some. What do you think Lutherans are thinking about healing and reconciliation in the LCL?
The first thing I've recognized is that everybody that sent in comment, they really love the church. And they are hoping that the church would do well so that it be able to live up to its goals and objectives. I mean, preaching the gospel, but also reaching to man. They are eager that the church that they know will be able to solve their problems, adjust those wrongdoings, and then forge ahead successfully with everybody on board. I mean, it's not possible to make everybody happy. But once the policies are there, if you went against the policy, then the leadership will take its course according to what is on the books. But we should not just allow it to be flying. This is what I'm hearing from all the comments. They love the church.
Brother George, what do you think is the challenge for the LCL Trauma Healing Program to even just come up with a small assessment across the church to ask people simple questions? What you think is the status of healing and reconciliation in the church? What you think are the issues, the main issues? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Simple assessment just to get the perception of Lutherans about healing and reconciliation in the church? What is wrong? Why don't we see those kinds of reports, or don't we see forecasts as a result of those kinds of assessments? What do you think is the issue? That's the only way we get to know where we are. We're healing and reconciliation in the church when you gauge the views of the people themselves.
Well, let me before trauma healing have been in phases up to now, right? When we were there, we were in emergency cases, we're in emergency era, and during those days, we're just doing trauma healing to give people the hope to live and survive, or to survive and live, and give them hope that there is a tomorrow that they don't need to give up. But we are in development era.
Right.
I mean, it behooves every institution to have a plan for tomorrow, on how they continue, to be meaningful to the situation or the association in which they serve. So I don't know what their plans are. I've not been able to talk to them for some more time, but I think they need to recast and then maybe reprogram and involve within their program issues concerning the church much more. Like, I mean, 10-15% of their budget should be looking much more about helping the church to solve problems that may arise from interactions and policies differences.
I'm asking you this question directly because you are an old hand in the business, and you should be referenced in some of the activities that they undertake in terms of how to proceed with it. I know that the periods are different. We were definitely in an emergency period when you headed the THRP. But right now in the development state, I think much of their activity should be based on data. It should be based on information, baseline information that they have. So if they are now undertaking that, I think they should make it part of their routine to always gather data on different aspects of issues in the church and be able to do analysis and inform the leadership in the form of recommendations. I think that's the way to proceed. But let me ask you about the women's situation. We have
one second, Josiah.
Right.
And I also think that they should extend their network. If they are networking with VRP's actors, they will be able to give and take, knowledge and responsibilities and programs. For example, the Peace Building Office has a conflict monitoring platform.
Right.
So they could harness that in a way that they just set that early warning platform for the Lutheran Church in Liberia. So every time there is a conflict somewhere, somebody will just send it on the platform. It will help you to catalog various conflicts and what those conflicts are about, their root causes, who are involved, and what could be the effects, the long-term effect, and those kinds of things. It will really, really help them. I work with that platform. I could help if they want me to help them.
Yeah, I know you work with the Peace Building Office. You work with the Peace Building Office before. Yeah, I used to be right behind them. My office used to be right behind your office. Yeah, on the executive ground. I remember that very well. But let me say this: we were actually, I know Willie, Couple, and Abel will be interested in this question. How do you grade the national leadership in handling the women fellowship issue? How do you grade them? That would be my last question. And then
what do you mean?
Go to my colleagues,
Be specific.
I'm talking about the national LCL leadership. How do you grade them in handling this matter?
Well, I'm not sure I will be just to them because if I have to grade them, I'm not sure I will serve well, because I mean, they have not told us what they have done. They have not told us what they have not done. But I just regret that the missing opportunity we had to allow people to remain put.
No, Brother George, don't forget. Brother George, don't forget. You remember that it was stated that the Bishop Padmore, issue a clemency or attempted to lift the suspension, but the executive council insisted that the suspension be maintained. It was a decision of the and I even said on the show I was confused as to how the executive council got involved with a clemency, because a clemency is a clemency. When it is issued, it shouldn't be questioned. That's why it is referred to as a clemency. So if the bishop decided to pardon or to issue a clemency to lift the sanction, I don't know, and I still stand to be corrected. I'm still confused. If at all it is true that the executive council intervened by insisting that the suspension should hold, should not be lifted, then it means that leadership was involved somehow. So that's why I'm asking, on the basis of that, how do you grade him?
Have we had executive council? Have they had executive council meeting before? I mean, or during this crisis, the women crisis? Have they had any executive council meeting?
Willie.
No, maybe
Because
maybe couple or Ibe can fill us in, but
Yes,
I think
I think I think Bishop said the executive council meeting was held September last year. I think September when he suggested that.
The suspension should be lifted.
Yes, and the whole executive council went wild. And
said
while
no,
I
it should
gather,
be.
and someone even wrote when it came from the executive council meeting, someone wrote down the new bishop want to unilaterally push out the constitution of
Yeah.
LCL. Yeah, I think I heard, about that letter.
Right.
So I
So
don't know
it's
what
from
we
that
as
angle,
a
Brother George.
forget.
okay,
So I
so I mean, I am not sure if the executive council really investigated well to know the root causes and to know how it will impact the women and the church.
it did
If
not.
they did not, if they did not do much more in that direction, then they are, I mean, culpable. They play some part. They are an actor in the conflict. So maybe um, they might not have done, from my background as a conflict expert, they might not have done those things that they're supposed to have done to reach the decision in which to reach a decision to suspend the women and to deny them of taking part in the elections. So you see, they suspend and then they deny. So that two different things. So the executive council is, I don't know, at that policy level, how did they intervene in such way low level conflict like that?
Right.
How did it get to them? You're
I'm
supposed to be
still
making
puzzled.
policy. You should be
I'm still
making
puzzled.
policy.
Mhm.
You should be making policy. Why are you implementing?
Yeah.
Why are they implementing? They should be making policy.
Okay, Brother George. Yes, good questions. Yeah, why are they implementing? Why are they involved at that level? Yes, good questions, Brother George. So we want to go to our colleagues right now. We'll go to Cisco. Cisco, you got your last question for Brother George? We'll take one each, and then Brother George will give his parting comments.
Okay, thank you. See you, brother. Um, like we said, this is a church. The Lutheran Church is our common denominator. But when things happen, we should look at the root cause of it. And another thing you talk about is we should look at where this conflict originated from. And I want to appeal to all of us, especially we as hosts and co-hosts on the show. We invite Verimpe on the show, yes, to provide more information, because if we don't know the root cause of whatsoever that is happening, to solve it, it will be hard. Like our guest said, we have added another one to it. You cannot have people in the midst of conflict and you go and you carry on election with the same group involved. And someone said they will fall in line. They will fall in line. Yes, and we say we're in the church. The church, we're in the church. So we need to know the root cause. We need to get Pay, who have been talking. Yes, Pay always said this. They thing started from somewhere. So I think we need to know the root cause, where it came from, how it entered the women. It went to the district and it went down to the national. So that's a good thing. So, same brother, from your background, I think we need to get people involved. Because if we don't look at the root cause, we will just be wasting water on dogs' back. Elijah said people character are being spoiled. People lie on people. People say things about people, and other people take it to be truth.
Yeah.
So people gotta come and clarify. People gotta explain. Let's look at the cause of it. How it came about. How it came about. And I'm sure Pay is fully aware how it came about. So he need to get involved. Let us get him involved to help in the process. For mine, it's not a question, it's just a comment. Let him get involved in resolving this problem. When we start from the genesis and we'll get somewhere. How it got in the women. So that's my appeal.
Can I
Thank
say
you.
something to that real quick, Josiah?
Right.
We also need to be a little careful when we engage in this. I think we should give the women a breathing space, a breathing window to see
Right.
what the leadership will do.
Right.
It should not be like we are instigating or we
Absolutely.
giving the other side upper hand to reject the leadership.
Right.
So I think, but from all fairness, we should give Sis Yama time to see how she will establish her leadership, and they'll see what role she provides to the other people.
Right.
Secondly, I'm not sure. I mean, your truth is not Pastor Pay's truth. You are involved with this, with the argument, with the conversation, with the conflict. You're supposed to know what the conflict is about, and not somebody else coming to say this is the root cause of the conflict. How will you do that?
That's
Like
a
you
good
go to a
point.
hospital and somebody got to come and tell the doctor this is what the person is suffering from. You already know. You can talk for yourself. So you should not depend on somebody, because this is what make conflict dynamics. Because in the end, you will not even see Yama and Annie. There will be new players, like for example Koklo. He's talking much more than Yama is talking. What role is he playing? So
Hey,
over time spent, Yama will be erased completely from the conversation. Only Koklo and other people that are supporting her will be talking, and you wouldn't even know that Yama was part of it. Or Annie's group will come up to and cover the same way, and Annie will be hating from the same thing. That's what happened in conflict situation. So let's give the leadership the fair share of the deal and see how they organize their group and move on from there. If they prove powerless over the situation and want intervention, then we can provide it. We should not be the judge that go over their own case and find you.
Are you guilty?
Right. That's true. That's true. That's true. And you know, in all of this, I want Willie, I'm coming to you, but let me nail this. I really want our viewers to know that our role here as a network is to help you better understand some of these issues, so that it informs you as to what contribution you can make to addressing some of these issues and contributing to development of our church. That's our role. We are not a specialist. We are not the experts. We ask the questions for the expert to help you better understand these issues. So one of the concerns we'll be having, and as I emphasize it, is because it's a concern of our network. The role of the trauma healing program is very significant. Anybody can agree to that. We are saying that they shouldn't sit and for conflict to occur for them to make intervention. We are saying that they should be proactive to put in place early warning systems, to be able to gather data, to be able to make insightful recommendations, to be able to guide the leadership. I think that is the role. That is the fundamental role of the THRP. And as statement team, probably had the THRP been involved in analyzing this women's situation and advising the national leadership, we wouldn't have been at this point, probably. Yeah. So if that's not what they're doing, I think that's what they should be doing, and that's what they must do. Brother Willie, it's over to you, my friend.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Same brother, George. I want to ask this question. You know, in the process of reconciliation and those mediators that are coming in, I mean, having people, you know, like the situation right now at is so complex because first the thing is you had two parties going into a race, and one party was kind of strangulated and allowed the other party to go, which of course that party thinks that they have the upper hand and they are moving. Then you have the same, then you have elements of that party, you know, throwing out talk in Liberian way, you know, provoking others. So in such a situation, I mean, what would be the best approach, even coming from the trauma? Because for me, I would say that setting up the investigative committee, when I look on that committee, I don't even see the trauma healing part of that committee. I think the trauma healing even should have been spearheading that committee. People, those who are involved should have been sent to trauma healing for, you know, reconciliation and even counseling them, you know, because we have counselors that will counsel them, you know, and kind of arrest the situation. But you know, how it was handled from executive council, like you said, you know, rendering judgment or so. And in fact, if you look at the entire suspension process, is that I understand that it's innocent before proven guilty, but I think it was like people were guilty before they went even to the courthouse or to the investigation committee. So people throwing talks like that. What's the what I mean, what's the best option in this to really come in if anyone or even the current administration, like you're saying, that we should give Sis Yama, I mean, we now the church as a whole, because everyone now, you know, is looking up to her and her leadership. How can they really come in? You know,
So what you going to do there when you come in? What you going to do? They were struggling for power. The power is now in one person's hand. So what kind of resolution you want?
no. What I'm saying is, like, you know, I mean, even since Yama was on the show and she talked about bygone being bygone, right? And I think that's towards reconciliation, talking about bygone should be bygone and everyone should
Well,
move forward. But
well,
yeah.
let me cut you off.
Mhm.
Any reconciliation that will say let bygone be bygone, that's a fake reconciliation.
Anyone.
Right.
What is the bygone? What is the bygone? The bygone between who?
I mean, exactly. I too was confused, you know, when say let bygone be bygone. You know, people had are so
No,
strong,
but
the
but
spoon,
but but
bygone
brother
should
Willie,
be
you are
bygone.
right.
But
Brother
people are
Willie, you are
standing from
right.
behind, right? People are standing from behind and throwing stone. People are
I
throwing
Brother
agree
Willie,
to
stone.
you.
Brother Willie, you have a point. And let me just set the record straight. You know, Brother George and everybody on this platform, you remember when Sis Nyama in fight started, unrealistically, I called her to order. She said that there was no conflict. And I said no. She said, as far as she know, there was no conflict. She only came to provide clarification. And I called her to order and said, no, that is incorrect. There is a conflict. And there was LTR. We can't just undo LTR by the state of our thoughts. There was LTR. LTR actually happened. And the conflict ensued. And the conflict is unresolved. So there is a conflict. For us to go, you know, smoothly with this interview, you have to accept that there was a conflict. And
I,
if you should resolve the issue, you have to accept that there was a conflict. I think I corrected that when Yama sat with us
no,
because
no,
she
you did.
did. Yeah.
You absolutely. I mean, you did. But you see,
Yeah.
Josiah?
but
Yeah.
like we say, you know, let bygone be bygone. You know, thinking that okay, that's how we can resolve it. But people are in the back end there throwing stone. You know, saying people will fall in line or making
Well,
some other
Willie, somebody will
comments.
ask you, Willie, I don't think we should lift those kinds of conversation. We can't lift that. Those are people
We
opinions.
are we are at the end. We are at the end of the show.
Right.
I agree with the frustration, right? But Yama just proved that there was no conflict because she won.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So you see, it has
Right.
added more grease to her elbow,
Right.
and she has proven to the people that you can't do anything. I told you I'm going to win, and I won.
Right.
So right now, allow the tension to go down.
Right.
Let's look at her.
Right.
If she calls for help, then we intervene. If she
Right.
does that and the other group calls for help,
Right.
we intervene.
Right. And it is interesting to see how it's going to play out because
Exactly.
she indicated that there's no conflict. And
Mhm.
Right.
interestingly, she's now the president.
Exactly.
So we need to watch and see. I agree with Brother Josh. It is fair to her leadership. She needs to settle in with her leadership, and then
Right.
she needs to take care of whatever situation the women having. Because for her, it's not a conflict. She needs to take care of that, and let's see how that plays out, Brother Willie, Sis
Oh,
Couple,
sure,
and
absolutely.
Abel.
Yeah.
I think we should just let that happen and then
Right.
see how it plays out and how everybody will get involved or not based on the leadership approach. Brother Willie, stay in your court. Otherwise, we go to Brother Liawali.
Uh, no, I'm already done. Maybe I don't know if we are giving our closing comments now. I just want to make an announcement to our viewers that the next 2 Sundays coming, we next Sunday we're gonna be having our most famous show, Bishop Hour. We're gonna be having our Bishop Hour next Sunday, and the first Sunday in April, we will be hosting a guest from the climate justice and fit from the Pacific Theological Seminary, Fubi Muriah. She will be here. And we're going to be having a wonderful program this time around. We're going to be talking about something different, maybe something that the church is looking into, or more people are not familiar with, as climate justice. So I just wanted to make that announcement.
Wonderful. That's great. Climate justice coming up on my
Yeah.
Lutheran Connections online TV. So Sis Couple is done. Brother Willie is done. Brother Batem is over to you. Your closing statement.
Yeah, thank you ever so much, Joe. Thank you, Uncle Josh, for that beautiful deliberation tonight. I think you have kind of really built up the issues of reconciliation within our church. Sometimes we feel that we know. Many people feel that they know the problem. But trust me, until you go deep into the problem, you wouldn't know. We just look at the issues on the surface. As somebody regularly said, it's about time that the trauma healing and reconciliation program takes its position
Mhm.
and really get to work. I think we need more conflict researcher right now in the trauma healing program who will do research on different conflict issues and do analysis. And on the basis of our analysis, you'll be able to inform strategic decisions as to how to intervene into the different kinds of conflict that kind of filtering around our church. It's important that we do that. And that's why Uncle George have told us tonight that this requires the process and we should give chance to the new leadership of the Women Fellowship. Maybe they have a strategy. Maybe be able to solve this problem all by themselves. You never tell. If they fail to do that, maybe after a couple of months, that when experts will kind of avail themselves somehow and say, look, we are here. We can help to do some intervention into this process. So, Brother George, I just want to say thank you ever so much tonight. And we hope that we can have these kinds of discussions as we move forward so that we'll be able to kind of quench some of the issues and to minimize some of the many conflicts that we have within the church. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thanks to everyone. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We will go to Brother George for his final comments, his parting comments.
Thank you for the invitation to come on your show. I'm proud to be a Lutheran. I will always be proud and I will always remain a Lutheran. The Lutheran Church put much more resources in my training, so I avail myself anytime. Once it has to do with Lutheran issues, let me know the role I can play, and I'll be very happy to play the role. Like I told Bishop Batmo, I'm here, I'm available. Before I go, I would just want to maybe get you a caveat that we all will be looking at. There is an emerging conflict that maybe nobody is looking at. I've been looking at it. And to the open letter to Bishop, I mentioned it. There are people here qualifying themselves, going to school, getting doctorate degrees, pastors. They will be going back to Liberia. Is the church prepared? How our national pastors, they are going to see it. Just a food for thought. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm here.
Thank you. Thank you. Healing and reconciliation, it can be built. It can be built. People can heal. People can reconcile. Meaning it can be built. It can build bridges between opposing parties and help repair fractured relationships. It can help break the cycle of violence, aid post-traumatic reconciliation, build a more peaceful common future, and ultimately sustain peace. This, however, is not possible without acknowledgement, without truthfulness, and without acceptance. Only when we realize that is when we can truly and genuinely reconcile ourselves as a church. Until then, this has been my Lutheran Church Connections TV production. We will come to you again next Sunday. Take care. Enjoy yourself. Have a wonderful brand new